Okay, so welcome to the Tazed Logic podcast, the ever-shifting format. We haven't landed on one yet. We're always changing, and if you're still listening, we appreciate you. We are talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League today. If you do not know the story of the Zack Snyder's Justice League, he set out on this journey to create an epic movie, one that had never been seen before. This was pre-Endgame. This was pre-Infinity War. No movie had ever been seen at this scale yet. And he got to the end of production. Apparently there was tons of behind the scenes issues with studio execs and producers and stuff not liking what he was doing. And unfortunately, his daughter committed suicide and he decided to leave the project. Unfortunately, left the project, and the studio took over from there. They hired Joss Whedon to finish the job, and they unfortunately messed up his vision. They decided to reshoot whole chunks of it. I think they only ended up using 30 minutes of Zack's stuff, and since then, fans of Zack Snyder's and fans of Justice League have been clamoring to see Zack Snyder's version of this movie. They wanted to see his vision restored to the big screen, and that's exactly what we got. And it was perfect, and it was beautiful, and it was both equally everything we wanted and more. And it was everything fans of Zack Snyder wanted, and everything fans, people who don't love Zack Snyder so much. I've seen people posting that they love it too. So I mean, it really is just an amazing film. And it's one of those things that, it's just once in a lifetime cinematic events you really don't see anymore. Endgame was, something very similar, big epic superhero tale, but this is very different. It's epic in its own way. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it over and have everybody introduce themselves. Jake.
All right. I'm Jake Graydon. I've done a few of these podcasts and I'm still terrible at it.
EJ.
I'm EJ Acosta. This is my first time on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Jesus.
Hey guys, I'm Jesus. I'm a huge Batman fan, so I'm just happy to talk about anything relating Batman, and thank you for having me first time here.
Heck yeah. Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. This is officially my first Tazed Logic podcast. We've done unofficial podcasts before.
Yes, we have, but they've never made it out to air yet. They have not made it out to air yet. Yeah, so we're all filmmakers in some way or another. Everybody here is incredibly talented, but we're also huge comic book fans. So this makes it a perfect movie for all of us. Awesome movie, awesome comic book experience. All right. So yeah, let's start talking about it. I thought the opening was brilliant. I made tons of notes. I'm gonna run down because it goes from beginning to end, but if anybody feels like they want to add to it, jump right in. I thought the opening was brilliant. I thought it was a great way of tying us into the context of the last movie, reminding us where we are, and then taking that and showing it in a different way, showing the way Superman's death not only affected the world but also woke up the mother boxes, which sets the story in motion. I really thought that was amazing. And then you see the Atlanteans, you see the Amazonians, you see Cyborg for the first time because that box is in his closet. And I thought that was just an absolutely brilliant way of starting the movie off. And then
it was much better.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No. I want people to talk.
I mean, it was much better than the way that Joss Whedon's version opened up, to the point where I actually had to think back how it opened up. And it was funny. Somebody I was talking to said, yeah, I watched Justice League and the movie kind of sucked because they didn't even explain how Superman died, because unless you didn't see Dawn of Justice, you wouldn't even know how Superman died in Whedon's cut. So I liked how they showed his death from Batman versus Superman and incorporated that with Cyborg and everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, all we get in that Joss Whedon cut is like maybe a 12-second shot of a newspaper offering some sort of exposition, but that's really it.
Yeah. And here's what I'll say. This is this may be the only good thing you ever hear me say about the Whedon cut. I don't recommend watching it. However, I do love the opening scene of the Whedon cut, which starts with the two kids on the iPhone running up to Superman and talking to him. And there's something I love about that. I love seeing children interact with superheroes. I think it puts it into perspective a lot because, as much as I love a dark, gritty superhero movie, I think so
Children
often
interacting with Jagger Lip Superman.
yes. Well, you got to get past that a little bit. But I think in a world where we see so much superheroes, it's easy to forget how affected we all were. Everybody here was by watching superheroes as a kid. And anytime you get a moment like that between superhero and kid, and there's a great moment like that in Zack Snyder's version too, I just well up a little bit. It makes me feel like a kid again. Not that I'm that old anyway. I thought Cyborg's everything having to do with Cyborg was just perfect. Pitch perfect. I thought the CG was great. I particularly like the CG on his hoodie. I'm a big CG nerd, and his hoodie just looked so photo real. I thought it was great. And then his whole arc was just brilliant.
I liked how he was explaining things like in the I liked how they put him like in regular form into like specific environments.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, to show what his own inner head was. That was brilliant. I loved the whole sequence where he's tracking that one woman from the store, and she's getting groceries and she has to put some back, and she couldn't pay her bills, so she's been evicted from her home, and then she goes to the bank and all that money stacks up. And I love the visual way where you see Cyborg literally stacking up the money. I thought that was just a great visual. And I welled up watching that, and it makes you want to see more of that character Cyborg. And I don't know if that's ever going to be a reality, but I definitely felt satisfied with what we saw here. I mean, it was just beautiful. Yeah. And it was a great way of also showing how the people of Gotham have, they're not always so dark, and I think when you look at Gotham through Batman's lens, not always, but when you look at it through Batman's lens, a lot of it just feels so criminal and stuff like that. And then you see that, maybe not everybody in Gotham is so bad, like this woman or even Cyborg, who's just trying to do his part to help people. I thought that was a great twist on Gotham as well, and the spirit of Gotham that we don't always get to see.
Not to interrupt, but
yeah.
like I was thinking this the whole movie, and especially when you're talking about Cyborg, I want to just talk about how brilliant the use of, they could have picked a million villains for the movie, but the use of the mother boxes were. I thought that was so smart because it instantly involved all of the members of the Justice League in like a believable way. Because Cyborg had a direct connection to one of the mother boxes. Aquaman had another direct connection to one of the mother boxes. And so did Wonder Woman. Since Wonder Woman was involved, Batman was involved. And since he saw all these heroes were involved, that made Batman want to get the Flash. I thought it was just such a smart way of assembling the team in a brilliant way.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
On top of everything you just said about Cyborg, which I also loved.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then we get quite a bit of the Atlanteans. I love the way they looked, the way their hair flows underwater, the design of it. And it was great because I love what James Wan did with them. But it's cool to see two directors without changing it drastically. The Atlanteans weren't that different aesthetically, but seeing each of their perspectives on the material, on the way they look and act and feel. It was great. I love what Zack did. I love what James did. And it was brilliant to see both of them in unison, in combination.
Yeah. And I'm just glad that we got to get more of that, because in the Joss cut, that exposition and that like aspect of his origin, because keep in mind, Aquaman hadn't come out yet. That was our first like introduction to the character, our first time meeting him, and those key scenes are just absent, nowhere to be seen. And And that first time when Aquaman actually shows up, and he saves them in the tunnel from the water, and he's using the trident.
Amazing.
And that Volko scene where him
That-
like telling him to like take up the trident, like
I love that scene. That
Yeah.
was brilliant.
Yeah, me too. I wish that was in, like, there's so many scenes. Like, I understand that Warner Brothers had to keep a time constraint, but they could have added so many scenes from the Snyder Cut that would have made the movie's character arcs flow so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even Steppenwolf, you feel more for him because he actually has a motivation in
Yeah.
this one. Like he wants to get back to Apocalypse, and he's not allowed there for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And like he didn't have any really motivation other than I'm just here, I'm gonna conquer.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about how the parademons were more terrifying in the Snyder Cut? And
Oh, they're so cool.
It's like a horror
it was
movie.
so much cooler. And then, like, in the Whedon's cut of it, thinking about how Batman used a criminal to bait a parademon versus what we got in Snyder's cut, it's laughably horrible that we didn't change that.
First of all, total dick move on Batman's part to just like yoink a guy down with no regard for his life. And just like, all right, maybe I'll pull you back in time to stop the parademon.
But yeah, there's a great scene where you first see one of the parademons and he breaks into Silas's lab.
Mhm.
And he knocks a lamp over and the light hits the janitor from underneath. And Jake was saying it looks like one of those old 70s or 60s Hammer horror films where it's like
it looked
super
so
dramatic, underlit, and looked very horror-y in a classic way. And I just loved that.
It was truly horrifying. Like everything about the characters were like even the way how Superman is presented to us, like in that first scene where he's like hovering above them with the eyes glowing. Like I'm like truly terrified of Superman and Batman as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then we move, and I love the way. I love the flow of it, the whole movie, but particularly in the opening scene, we go from that scene of Martha visiting her son's grave, and then in one shot we see house being sold, and we swing over to the house, and it says everything you need to, but then excuse me, we drive right down the road, and it sweeps right into Lois in bed, walking to the coffee shop, going out, which then sweeps right into.
By the way, that cop was the original Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, really?
Was it really?
I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's so cool.
I'm gonna have to watch it a third time now.
That's the only reason I'm gonna watch it a third time is to see OG Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. There's actually another cameo in that scene is when Lois is walking out of the coffee shop. Zack Snyder sitting in the little window of the coffee shop, which I thought was really cool. I love seeing director cameos in movies.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because I only knew about that because EJ literally texted me that, and it was like the middle of the night and everyone else in my house was asleep and I was freaking out. I like needed to share it with someone else.
That's great.
I was like, oh my god, like, EJ, you are a god. I was like,
Josh pointed out Peter Parker, the Peter Parker on the
the Ben Parker.
oh, the best.
Yeah, when Flash
Yeah.
gets thrown into the memorial, there's right over his shoulder is a Ben Parker written on the memorial.
I love that so much.
But
And then
It's like, what psychopath noticed that? What?
who was going frame by frame through
Yes,
a lot of people going frame
in
by
this
frame through
4-hour
this one.
movie.
I'm gonna be doing that.
Josh, you were bringing up how we were bringing up how the movie flowed perfectly.
Yeah.
It was funny how 4 years ago, Warner Brothers was like, this is like a mess, like Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad. And I'm watching this, I was like, every scene except for maybe, I don't know what you guys feel about that scene with the Martian Manhunter and Martha Kent, but other than that, all the scenes flowed perfectly together. It didn't feel like one thing was like happening and then another thing was happening.
Well, this is, I think that comes down to a term that gets misused a lot, which is pacing.
Yeah.
editorial pacing. A lot of times I hear people throw that around. Oh, the movie had bad pacing. The movie had good pacing. But that really boils down to that feeling, right? Like Batman Superman, as much as I love it, I love Batman Superman, and I love
The Ultimate Edition.
the Ultimate Edition.
Definitely.
But I think Batman Superman and then the theatrical cut of Justice League both had bad pacing. Those
Yeah.
movies feel long. I remember a couple months ago I tried to sit down to watch the Whedon version. I got an hour in and I was like, ugh, I don't want to keep going. Like it's just so much going on. I'm like, ugh, it's boring, and I stopped it. And then you watch this one, and the first hour flies by. Second hour flies by. Third, fourth hour fly by because the movie has really good pacing.
Yeah.
Things are happening. Characters are being developed.
Mhm.
Even when there are quiet, because it's long. It's long, and there it is slow paced at times, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just ever flowing. It feels so beautifully paced, which I am in awe of. As a filmmaker, I'm in awe of how they were able to do this. The Amazons, when we see them, badass.
I never
So awesome.
seen 300, but those scenes, like, I felt like this is Sparta was gonna come out of somebody's
Yeah.
mouth, but we didn't even get any of that in Whedon's version. It was just too like beautifully like, oh, there's the Amazons, they're riding on horses. With this one, they were like
They were warriors.
Yeah, they were straight up buff, basically.
Yeah.
The scene where the trap door in the Themyscirian
so
vault,
Oh,
when
so
it like
cool.
falls and they're like catching it.
I mean, and I love, there's something, and it pays off later thematically. I love that they all fought like they were sisters.
Yeah.
You could see like these are people who live for thousands of years and all they do is train for fights, and that fight shows it off. Like you could see them going through like every tactic they had, and it looked so cool because you see one person, they shoot an arrow which the other woman catches and lands on the horse, and it's just so beautifully executed. I mean,
and it builds the powerfulness of the parademons because you see how fierce these warriors are, and Steppenwolf easily single-handedly defeated them in that first part.
yeah.
In Whedon's cut, you don't even see any of that. So like that even build Steppenwolf as a more capable villain for Snyder's cut too.
Absolutely. And Steppenwolf, I mean, beautiful in this. We're gonna keep talking about him because I fucking love Steppenwolf in this movie. His
We haven't
armor
talked about
is beautiful. I
Mr.
love.
that.
Yeah. When I first saw the design of him, I was like, it looks a little off. And then you see it in motion. It's like the way it flickers and it moves. It feels alive, And then he has such power. When he first steps out of that boom tube, he like slams into the ground. You feel the weight of this motherfucker. Like he means some business. I mean, this whole movie has big dick energy. I mean, just everybody is badass, and every character is so badass in their own way.
Is it bad that when I saw Steppenwolf for the first time, I wanted him to kill as many Amazons as possible?
Yeah, you look.
Like when he was
you look
swinging
at
his
him,
axe,
you're
I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah,
go
cut
for
her in
it.
half. I was like, yeah, kill that horse.
yeah.
I was like, yeah, kill those people.
Yeah,
And
you
Jet-
want
get that
him
mother
to
box.
win. You want this motherfucker to win because he's badass and he looks badass and he's cool.
Oh, and dude, anytime he like growls and like the spikes all stand up on him, it was so badass.
I mean, there's that great shot. I think it was in the Amazon temple where they're protecting the mother box and they're all shooting shit and it's badass. Amazing stuff going all around. But he gets shot with all those arrows and he just flexes and they just like they all fly out and you're like, whoa.
That was so awesome.
Yeah, it's just great. Oh, I
my
loved
God.
it so much. And then I love the chapter breaks. What a perfect
Yeah.
pacing device.
It
Oh,
re-
it was so great.
it
I know.
reminds people forget that back in the 50s and the 60s, that movies used to be 4 hours long because
Yeah.
it was an experience going there and seeing like because old movies like Ben-Hur, I think, did this 2001. They would say, okay, part 1, this intermission.
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
intermissions and breaks. EJ and I were talking about this earlier, and I've heard Zach talk about Kurosawa being a big influence. That 4:3 aspect ratio is very Kurosawa. It feels epic, but in not a traditional sense, because I think traditionally when we think of epic, we think of the anamorphic, like what's the great movie I'm thinking of? Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Big epic sweeping shots, but this has epic in a different kind of way. There's epic that's tall, like the superheroes are, and it's just so amazing. I love the way they used both, you're right, the intermissions, but also the formatting of it was just fire. Beautiful.
Well,
I
we
loved
were
it.
talking about this too, Josh. Like when I saw the trailer, it just felt weird seeing a trailer with that aspect ratio. But watching the movie, I was like, I actually liked it. It felt reasonable that way because you're right. Everything is more like this. You don't have a lot of sweeping shots in the Snyder Cut.
Beautiful. I think the first person who really pioneered that, and again, okay, I said this was the only time I said earlier I wasn't going to say any good words about Joss Whedon. This is going to be the second and final time I say any good words about Joss Whedon. I think he did the smart thing, and he had a wider frame, not quite 4:3. I think it was 16:9 in Avengers, and that did a lot for them too. You were able to frame the Hulk and Black Widow in the same shot, and it still felt nice and well composed and epic and beautiful. And moving on, costume design. I thought that Michael Wilkerson did the costume design. I think he deserves. I don't even know if this is eligible for an Academy Award. I don't know what's up. He deserves every award a man can get for costume design. Brilliant, and not just the superhero suits, which are beautiful. I think there's other suits, like when Wonder Woman's cleaning the statue and she's trying to blend in. Her what she's wearing, the dress or whatever, is the same white as the statue. Right, so she blends in with her environment. Aquaman, who's also trying to blend in, he's got these rough textures, and it matches the rough textures of the architecture around him. Bruce Wayne in that scene does not stand out. I mean, he does stand out. He's in jet black, clothes are a lot cleaner, but he stands out a lot more in that scene. And I thought the use of costume design was just really, really great. Ryan Choi, his suit, his jacket was red, and that matched the red that was going on in the lab. Like, I just really liked the way they used everybody's costume designs.
You guys are gonna laugh at me.
Yeah.
But when I saw Martian Manhunter, I've heard of him, never knew what exactly he looked like. But I saw him in the first appearance. My first reaction was Captain Planet.
I could see that. Here's a Captain Planet vibe. I could see that.
Dude, when he showed up, I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was hyperventilating. I was like, oh my God, it's Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's Martian Manhunter. I was freaking the fuck out, man.
By the way, guys,
you
know who was supposed to be in there? An article just came out today. Jon Stewart.
I know.
Yes, that would have been so cool.
I wonder who they got to play him. I don't need to, you know what, at this point I'm satisfied. I don't even need to see the scene. I would just love to see a set photo. See a set photo. What did he look like in costume?
They couldn't, wasn't for that scene. It was probably get to that later, but it was the ending scene where he appears to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Stewart.
Kevin Smith talked about that they filmed something with a green light that day outside his lake house.
Yeah. I'd love to see that, man. Speaking of a green light, the whole history lesson scene when we see Green Lantern for the first time.
Beautiful.
And that is,
dude, it is,
for the deep cut comic book nerds, that is Yalan Gur, one of the original Green Lanterns. Oh my God. And then that whole scene, I mean,
that was my favorite part of the movie.
That's
a great part of the movie.
That's up there. I loved it. I loved Darkseid's intro when he drops down into the dirt and you see him like scratch the dirt and he stands up and it's like, again, talk about a motherfucker that means business.
He had his
he was so fucking cool.
He got his arm axed and he was like, okay, let's go back to the ship. And like he was hurting, but it didn't stop him.
Yeah, and they brought David Thewlis back as Ares, which was just like,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't expecting that, and he was great. And you're right, he axed Darkseid right in the face, and that was, or in the shoulder, and it was perfect.
Dude, again, Darkseid, I felt the same way as Steppenwolf. Like when he chopped off the Green Lantern's head, I was like, yeah, kill him.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
kill
great.
Darkseid.
Yeah, you want those guys to win, and that's
And I was like, fuck
the
all
mark
these
of
good
good
guys. Like, kill him,
filmmaking.
Darkseid.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
want
so
to
cool.
stop here and really talk about like the cast. There has never been
Yeah.
a cast like this ever
Oof.
in a movie.
It's
Henry
so
Cavill.
good.
But the
Ben
one thing
Affleck. Yeah,
thing I will say about like Batman versus Superman and like even like you knew that the cast was great. It was just that we finally got to see that cast utilized to the best standards.
exactly.
Right.
Every single cast member was so utilized. Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Amy Adams, Ray Fisher, Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, Willem Dafoe, Jesse Eisenberg, Jeremy Irons, Diane Lane, Connie Nielsen, J.K. Simmons, Kieran Hines, Ryan Zhang, who was Ryan Choi, Amber Heard, Joe Morton, David Thewlis, Joe Manganiello, Jared Leto, Ray Porter, Kiersey Clemens, and Harry Lennox. These are all amazing actors. You know, actors that in any other movie you would be lucky to have as the star. You know, and they've got these amazing actors doing, side supporting roles, which I just love. I love a movie like this where you just have a quality of acting to everything.
Joe Morton is such an underrated actor, and
Absolutely.
you easily could have forgotten about him in the Whedon's cut. Like they just showed him for one scene when he was kidnapped, and that was it. I loved the whole father-son thing, and I loved how they added more to Scylla Stone.
Yes, I have a point about father-son that I'm going to make later towards the end of the video.
Oh, I just want to make this 100% clear. My favorite both actor and character in the movie was Cyborg. I think Ray Fisher just really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because we didn't get to see a whole lot of Cyborg before and Ray Fisher. And, when I first saw the movie, I liked him, but I didn't really feel that much for the character because I didn't see it. And then getting them to see, essentially, he's like, I don't want to necessarily say he was the heart of the story, but that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And again, you see that wonderful, Josh talked about it earlier, that wonderful scene of him just following the woman, whether it was just a day in her life or just over time, and seeing her struggle financially, and that he had the power to just fix all of her problems right then and there, all of her financial problems. And he did it. And it wasn't because he didn't do it to show like, oh, I'm powerful, I can do it. He did that because he genuinely cared about this person. He saw himself as broken, and this was something he could fix, like, very easily. I just loved it.
I love the subtle thing with the tape recorder. He's like listening to it, and by the time he was like, "Now I'm talking to you from the heart," just breaks it.
Oh my god, I almost cried.
I was heartbreaking.
I was in tears in so many parts of this movie, but that scene really had me choked up. Something I love about that is so often we put the importance on what power can do in the wrong hands, and I think that's important. It's important to show that we have to be wary of who we put power in the hands of. But what they did with Cyborg was show that it's equally important to put power in the hands of the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Put hands in the people of a guy like Vic Stone, who cares about people genuinely, and he has this humanity to him and sense of what's right and wrong. Yeah. And I really love that, which is something I you don't often see explored to such a degree in superhero medium. Flash's intro scene, that's top 3 scenes in the entire movie for me.
That was so great. That was one of the scenes, Josh, you were saying a few scenes that got you welled up. That was one of the scenes that I wasn't like sad welled up. I was just like so in awe watching it.
Yeah.
Like how, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We didn't want to talk about too much before we're doing this, but Flash was very quick when he was doing the actual job interview. When he walks in, he was very not necessarily clumsy, but just kind of all over the place and very talking fast. And as soon as he sees the danger and he's in his element and he knows what to do, he's very slow, he's very methodical, and he's very gentle. Like when he's pulling Iris out of the car, he's very gentle, because if he's not, he's just gonna he's gonna rip her in half, just moving that fast. And they showed that from him moving fast and his shoes tore, or when he made a hard stop the concrete tour.
Yeah.
So I just loved how gentle he was and how the scene really took its time, like Barry had to. He had to take his time making sure she was safe and she was all right. And it was just such a wonderful scene. And the music was doing its thing. It was amazing, and it was so helpful to the scene. And I don't know, it was so great. It was so great.
Yeah.
It was so great. I could say it was so great to everything in this movie.
Warner Brothers was saying that Zack Snyder had no humor in it. They needed Whedon to build the humor. I thought Barry Allen's humor was so much better than what we got in Whedon's cut. Like, I liked how he comes back petting the dogs. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I keep hot dogs in my pocket."
Yeah, it felt more natural here.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, because the humor in this felt like it stemmed from character rather than just, let's make this funnier.
Yeah, in Whedon's cut, for Barry's humor, we basically get the stupid marker on the face gag or the same boob gag from Age of Ultron where he's like falling on Wonder Woman's breast. It's just
That was
a little uncomfortable, not gonna lie. But I love it because in this version there's a very similar gag that managed to be just funny without being like disrespectful towards Wonder Woman or anything, which is when they're one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie, when they're digging up the body and Barry goes, you think Diana would go for a younger guy? And Cyborg stops and he looks at he's like, she's 5,000 years old, Barry. We're all younger guys to her.
That was the funniest
like how
thing in the
that's
world.
such a funny line, And
but I love how deadpan Cyborg said it. He was just like, he's like, dude, like either go for it or don't, but this is how it is.
Yeah, exactly. And that also shows that Cyborg starts to open up more to the group.
Right, which is great.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and speaking of Diana Prince, in Whedon's cut, it was like, let's force tension, like some weird tension between Bruce and Diana, and then not even care about anybody else. Like, we didn't. Oh yeah, that was the other thing too. It was mostly in the Batcave for Snyder's cut. I don't know where the bat plane came from in Whedon's cut.
Yeah,
that
was a little whack. I didn't like that. Speaking of Bruce and Diana, one of my favorite lines, I remember it was in the minute-long trailer we got, years ago. One of my all-time favorite superhero lines is when they're talking about Aquaman, and he goes, I met up with him, and he was like, oh, is he gonna join? More or less. More or more less? More or less. He said no. God. Brilliant.
It was so good.
So brilliant.
Hilarious.
I love it. And it's funny. It's character driven. It's just perfect. I mean, that scene is so emblematic of the type of humor in this movie that's amazing. Whole thing works so well. Yeah. And then the cyborg sequence. I mean, what a beautiful sequence. It starts off with this heartbreaking shot. I mean, Ray Fisher. I'm gonna keep using Ray Fisher and Vic Stone interchangeably just because they're the same person in my head. He's playing this game, and I love the use of slow motion to really punctuate a lot of moments. But there's a great shot where he looks up at his mother, and then the camera tilts down, and there's this empty chair. No lines of dialogue. It tells you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know about his relationship to his father and his relationship to his mother. It's just beautiful.
And that brings me to like my favorite part of the movie, which I know Zach is very visual. So like with technology, it's like easy to lose that human aspect. And Cyborg, he's the most tied to technology. And when we're getting that whole like montage sequence of what he can do, how he can control nuclear warfare or the Wall Street Bull and the Wall Street Bear, Zach finds a way to visualize it and put those things in there, and that allows me to like connect and feel things more.
In the trailer, there was a lot of Cyborg, and I remember watching, not really knowing how much of Snyder's stuff was cut out, but I remember seeing him play football in the trailers, and I'm like, I would have loved to see. And when I saw that scene where he's just rushing it showed how strong he was, and I was like, I would have loved to have that scene in there 4 years ago. I mean, the entire movie was basically where was this 4 years ago? But still, it's like these little things we saw in the trailers, and we're like, what about Cyborg?
Yeah, no, for sure. He really on first viewing, he was my favorite character. On second viewing, I had a different favorite character, but I will go into that later. But I didn't get a diminishing return on Cyborg either. It was just I felt like I picked up more on this other character. I love that Bruce stole Wonder Woman's gauntlets, and that was so well done in the scene between between Alfred and Wonder Woman, where he's like firing it, and he's making her tea, and he's being a little over controlling. I love the relationship between Alfred and Diana in this movie. It's just so funny, and it's so Alfred too. Like he's just very, almost he's very British in this movie. He's like a little protective. He's like, oh, you got to make the tea this way. Don't burn the leaves. Don't do this. It was just so great.
I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I'm glad that we got more of him.
Jeremy Irons, again, in any other, like if you watch The Watchmen, he's sort of the main, no, spoiler alert, he's sort of the main villain in that one. And, he takes center stage, and he's a brilliant actor. And then to have a brilliant actor like that playing Alfred, who's no small part, but, isn't one of the center stage characters, it adds just this real artistry to the whole film. I mean, I can't speak enough for the casting of this film. It's just amazing. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Jeremy Irons in this movie all day. So
let's talk about Jeremy Irons.
Let's talk about Jeremy Irons.
Who cares about the other characters?
Screw all the Justice League and the superpower ones. We all want to see more of Jeremy Irons. And I'm saying this like a joke, but I actually do want to see more of Jeremy Irons as Alfred.
I feel like if Jeremy Irons was there, dude, he would have killed Steppenwolf like so much faster. He would have just like smacked him with
poured
tea
some
or
hot
some
tea
shit.
on him, and he's like, my face in the hot tea.
Yeah, fuck you, man. Just throw it at him.
He would have just said, "Long live the king."
Yeah.
Long live the king,
and just pushed him off
a cliff.
Yeah, it would have been great. And then we have another one of my favorite lines when they superheat the mother box, and Ryan Choi goes, "That's the hottest thing on earth." He goes, which is exactly what I told my prom date. So funny, that's what I love. Like, I love that Zack Snyder will do that. Like he'll give a character like Ryan Choi, who's like, I don't even think he was in the Whedon version, but he gives this character such a great humanity and levity to him, and he feels like a person, like I feel like I know Ryan Choi, which is wild because he's a character from the comics that, I love his superhero, but I don't really know him so much as the character. For those that don't know, in the comics, he becomes the Atom, who is also Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi. Now I'm more of I know more about Ray Palmer because I think he's sort of the more well-known Atom. But I mean, again, you've sold me on Ryan Choi, Zack Snyder. If you want to do a movie about the Atom, I'm in.
Actually, the only reason I know more about Ryan Choi than Ray Palmer is because I played Injustice 2.
And you're right, he's the Atom in that game, and great character.
I was like, whoa, this guy's so cool. Let me learn more about him. And so I did.
Yeah. And then
he also shows up in the Arrowverse Crisis crossover.
Does he?
Does he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I got it. You know what? I'm so behind on all those shows. At some point, I have to go back and watch them. I was a big fan of them. Still am. DC tends to be kind of my universe. I love all the DC characters. Again, another line that showed up in that little trailer we saw at Comic-Con 4 or 5 years ago. Is the line where the Justice League shows up in the tunnel, and it's so badass and so cool, and Flash runs across, Wonder Woman flies across, Cyborg goes across, Cyborg still standing there, and he goes over to Batman, and he's like, heard about you, didn't think you were real, and Batman just goes, the most Batman line ever, I'm real when it's useful.
Yeah,
come on, man, that's perfect.
It was so good.
Is like we get all these trailers like this cool desaturated stuff, and then we watch the Whedon version, and it's like, this is too bright for me.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, something that was like really jarring for me, I remember when I watched the Whedon cut in theater, and we talked about this scene, the Superman scene with the kid in the phone.
Yeah.
When we see this Superman in the suit, just like the blue highlights of the suit are just like so oversaturated. I'm like, wow, that's a shade of blue I haven't seen him in a while. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
because like if you look at Zack's style of how he portrayed Superman in the suit, it's really more of a closer to a dark blue, and that was just like the first thing that like, wow, so
This is different.
colorful. And if you take any random frame from the Whedon cut and compare it to the Snyder cut, Whedon just like pumps up and oversaturates those colors.
Yeah. Well, that's another point that I think is important. It's those two things. You're right. Those costumes. I think the costumes are actually a really good marker of what makes Zack such a brilliant filmmaker. The Superman suit, you're right, is very saturated, but look at Aquaman's suit. Aquaman's suit in the Whedon version, there's bits of bronze or whatever, but he looks largely green. Like the whole suit looks green, and that's a cool look. But when you look at it in Zack's version, the way he colored the whole film and the way he particularly colored those scenes, when the light hits it, it glows gold and bronze, almost very similar to how he looks in the comic with that classic gold look. And it goes to show you that's, Zack designed these costumes to be photographed a specific way. And that shows it.
They added a little bit more. I don't know exactly how to describe it. Not like dirt, but in Snyder's cut, it was much more darker. There was much more stuff on it. And then the Whedon cut, it was like your just typical, just red. It kind of looked like Captain America's first suit in the Avengers, where it was just very
bright blue and Boy Scouty. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely things I liked about seeing it in that way, but you can't argue with Zack's results.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, the reason Superman's suit was much brighter was because Zack always intended in post to make it black and white.
Yeah.
And so they just didn't
They had
do
to
that
make
in
it
the
brighter,
new one.
so when they darkened it still looked shiny.
Exactly. And they just didn't do that. So it looked off. I'm not going to go say, it looked bad or whatever, because I don't think it looked bad. It just looked a little off. And
the muscles looked weird to me. Always like it looked like the muscles seemed fake because it highlighted a little bit more.
Exactly. And I think mixed with the CG lip, it just threw the whole look of Superman off.
People talk about the CG lip, but I felt like I actually tried watching Whedon's cut like a month ago, and it was just like, I felt like there were a lot of manufactured art, like just not even real stuff in there, because they probably also took a lot of Snyder's scenes and just CG'd a bunch of stuff over it.
You can see it too, because there were a lot of scenes I recognized in this cut that just look completely different. You're absolutely right, Peter.
Yeah. And then one of my favorite bits in this movie, it's just one of the coolest, most mind-blowing things I've ever seen in a superhero movie, is when Barry's rushing
Alfred.
Yes, it's more Alfred stuff.
It was Alfred. Just
release the Alfred cut.
We
We got to deep fake Jeremy Irons' face onto
over
all of the
every
actors.
single character.
No,
It'd
but
be the most disturbing thing ever.
It's really bad when it gets to the Diana scenes.
Oh god!
You just Jeremy Irons' face talking over
Jeremy
Diana,
Irons'
cutting
face.
everybody up, and it's just wild. I don't recommend watching it. Crazy expensive to make though.
The stupidest joke ever. It's the most expensive joke of all time.
The Irons cut.
Watch it.
Maybe we'll do that. I'm starting to slowly learn how to do deep faking. So maybe.
Oh my god!
Maybe we'll do that on our channel.
With all 4 hours of that movie.
Yeah, all 4 hours of that movie.
Put them on all the Amazons.
Oh my god! Watching them all charge down the hill, it's just all Jeremy Irons.
But yeah, so one of my favorite things I've ever seen in a superhero movie is when all the scientists are rushing out, and Barry and this big explosion hits, and the chunks are falling, and Barry's zipping piece by piece, breaking up all the rubble to save all of the scientists, is just like insane. I think they really.
It's like, can you guys go faster? And they're actually going faster up the stairs.
Yeah. And I love I don't know. I just feel like they used everybody's powers to a great effect.
Yeah.
Now to my favorite, not favorite scene. If so, the Flash saving Iris scene was number 3 of my favorite scenes. This is number 4 of my favorite scenes, which is the house smoke scene, which blew my mind. They're talking about the mother boxes and they're explaining, and they're like, well, you know, we can change matter, but you can't destroy matter, right? Like if you take a match and you burn a house down, particles of house turn to particles of smoke. But the mother box can turn particles of smoke into particles of house. And then you get the brilliant piece of filmmaking, which is the Man of Steel theme comes in. The dun, 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 dun. You get that little piece of music and you're moving around the table and Barry goes, we're all thinking the same thing, right? So good. And then it keeps spinning and Cyborg projects the man himself there, Superman, and he jumps off into the air so beautifully, and it moves over to Bruce, and it's just so beautiful the way the whole thing came together without really a ton of dialogue.
They did a much better job.
Thought it was beautiful.
Superman. Well, I mean, it was like it was the like every time we refer to Snyder's cut, it's always like how it was meant to be. But it was, again, I loved how they resurrected Superman.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no,
in
that
that
whole thing was
scene-
great.
In that scene with Superman, there's the projection. If it wasn't like, if you weren't catching on to that Superman theme that Hans Zimmer made,
Yeah.
pumped up to like 11. And
Yeah.
It was so good.
that's a hot button for me because like, although I loved hearing like some aspects of, you know, the Batman 89's like theme and the Whedon cut of Justice League, that the whole score of Justice League, it didn't just like, it didn't really feel right. Getting Junkie XL to score Justice League definitely fits more with the tone and feel that he was like going for.
Yeah.
In his defense, and again, not many times you'll hear me say this about the other movie. In his defense, he didn't have a lot of time to make the new score. So thing I always overlooked. I was like, all right, that's something I won't be that harsh on, because he was given the task and he wasn't given much time. So he worked kind of with what he got. And it sounded cool. Like Jesus said, it sounded cool, like especially when Superman was fighting the Justice League and you hear bits of the John Williams original Superman theme. That was cool. Like it was really cool. But it always felt like music that was placed on top of the movie rather than music that flowed with the movie and was made for the movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like even Wonder Woman scene, it was you know, the score was from Batman '89, and it always felt like really off with like that distinct, you know, like circusy feel to it.
Yeah. There's something to it.
During the part when they were reviving Superman, I kind of thought it was interesting that Cyborg saw the apocalyptic future.
Yes.
And didn't say anything.
That was so good.
Did anybody else? I don't know if I was like seeing things, but did anybody else see Kilowog, Green Lantern in that?
Yes,
movie?
yeah, you did.
Yes.
You did.
With a hole in his chest.
Yeah, there's a whole.
So
Oh my god, so cool. And then there's a detail I didn't, you know, I love that I haven't seen a ton of people point out, which is in that same shot, you see Superman flying up holding Batman's cowl. And if you remember the nightmare sequence in Batman Superman, it ends with Superman ripping off Batman's cowl and lasering him to death. So this is presumably like right after that, and he's still holding his cowl. And I just thought that was a great touch to sort of show sort of where we are in that timeline. And it's like,
I'm honestly ready just for that whole nightmare film. I hope we get that one day.
Oh my god,
I
so
want it.
much. Yes.
I want it so bad.
Especially after seeing, and I know we're jumping around a lot, but especially after seeing that final scene. I think it might have been second to last scene. I don't remember which one it was.
We'll
with
get
the
to
nightmare
that scene.
sequence.
We'll get to that scene. But
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much on that, but I will say, if Josh had like a top 3 scenes, that was number 1 for me. So when we get to that, I have so much to say about the nightmare scene.
Yeah.
I have so much to say. Oh my god.
And then so leading from that scene where they resurrect Superman, there's a great moment that, you know, at the time you watch it, it's very cool. And watching it a second time, it's even more brilliant setup for something that happens later, is when Flash runs down the hall and he's generating electricity. And the mother box is dropping into the water, and as he gets close, you see that he's reversing time, and the mother box lifts up. The photo comes out, and that's just a cool use of Flash's powers. But it's a great setup for something that happens later on that we're gonna get to. Yeah, one of the that scene is up there. That's a great scene.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
And then
also, something I love.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
No,
is in between all these scenes, or a lot of these scenes we're talking about, were the awesome scenes. Every time Steppenwolf got like a mother box, he'd go back to his base or whatever, and he'd have that awesome just hologram talk with Desaad, sort of Darkseid's right-hand man. It was so cool, man. And really it's always cool, like when something's cool and it's from the comics too, because I never thought I'd see Desaad in a movie ever.
Deep cut.
And like
deep cut
it's a deep cut. When I saw, like, I always figured that one day we might see Darkseid. I never thought we'd see Desaad. I never thought we'd see Steppenwolf. I never thought we'd see his fucking grandma, Granny Goodness, which was so cool to see her in the background.
And was that Judi Dench? And it looked like
if you look really closely, it's Jeremy Irons.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no idea who played her, to be honest.
Yeah, it looked like it might have been a fully CG creation, which
that's what I was thinking at first, but I don't know. It looked really good, so I couldn't tell.
I'm sure if they did a sequel, they'd cast somebody.
Somebody cast Judi
Dench. Yeah,
like it had that like kind of look to it, but yeah.
No, it was great. And then
the actress who's Captain Phasma in Star Wars looked a lot like who was the stand-in for Granny Goodness.
You're right. I could see her.
Right, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome.
Great choice too.
I must have missed Granny Goodness. Which part again was she at?
If you look at Darkseid, I don't remember if it's early in the movie or towards the end when you see him.
I think it's right at the end.
There's three people. It's Desaad, Darkseid, and then there's a woman with white hair next to him. And that's Darkseid's grandmother, which is like a real deep cut. Like if you're
that is the deepest fucking cut he ever could have made.
Yeah, that's almost as deep as putting the Guardians of the Galaxy in a movie, which is
really
still to this day blows my mind that they pulled that off. Then we got the return of Superman. Superman returns. What a wild scene, you know. I love that.
Oh my god, so good.
There's a great moment in that where Superman's standing there and Wonder Woman flies up and Superman stops her like this, and then Aquaman flies up and he stops him like this, and Cyborg flies into him and he's like not budging whatsoever, and then Flash runs up, and I love it. Just shows they look at each other, and that shows so quickly how fast Superman is.
Yeah,
we've established very well how fast Flash can move, and then for Superman to just look over his shoulder and see him, it's like, oh, they're in some deep shit right now. Like they are very fucked.
But it also was cool because we saw all of other Superman's powers. We saw he could fly. We saw how strong he was. You saw that we had the laser eyes. So like, I mean, obviously not for a lot of us, but for a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, Flash will stop him, right? Flash can totally stop him." And he just slowly follows him.
Superman looked at Flash like, "Am I a joke to you?"
Yeah, that's literally the look.
Also, when he lifted up the Justice League, I literally thought he was gonna throw the Justice League right at Flash.
Yeah.
But it was even better. He just ran at him himself. It was so cool. Oh my god.
No, it's great.
I feel like a kid, by the way, because literally I grew up watching Justice League Unlimited.
The old Justice League cartoon.
The Justice League animated series. It was so cool. I feel, again, Josh and I said this, I think after the first time we watched it, it felt like we were watching just an extended episode of Justice League the animated series. It just had that same flow to it. It was just awesome seeing the Justice League together.
Yeah,
something I never thought.
I love that, they just threw characters in there. Like you just saw Gordon, who was played by J.K. Simmons. Talk about the quality of actor. He's in there for 2 minutes, but they get an A-list actor like J.K. Simmons, an Oscar winner, to play him for those 2 seconds, and it adds a legitimacy to the whole world, right? Like you feel like there's a world moving around them that we're not quite seeing. We're only scratching the surface of that. I love. Yeah, and there's that great scene in when Superman returns and the Justice League and Flash runs up and he Superman moves out of the way and he gets Flash to use his own power to fly into Aquaman and knock him to the ground. And then Wonder Woman goes to do her arm clash, which she's done twice in this movie already. And she goes through the arm clash and Superman shoots forward and grabs her arm. And it's just like, whoa. And like, that was a moment that really got me to like stand up in my seat. I was like, whoa.
And that headbutt moment, like I know Jake, you're like, you love Mortal Kombat, but basically Injustice, the basically the DC version of that.
Yeah.
It felt very reminiscent of those combo kill moves that you would see in those cinematics.
Absolutely.
Injustice.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was so awesome.
No, that was great.
And again, I love Wonder Woman, but I was like, yeah, Superman, headbutt her into the ground. I was like, yeah, kill Batman, laser him in half, kill those cops.
Yeah, they really put you in the headspace. I mean,
maybe I'm just like
a psychopath, but
yeah, maybe I'm just insane.
But in the Whedon version, it was like, okay, so it was a very similar scene, except what Whedon really messed up was he wasn't supposed to have any memories except for Lois Lane. I was happy that the line, what he said to Batman, "Do you bleed?" was not in the Snyder cut, because it's like he doesn't memorize anything except for that line. Like, I guess it was like a callback to Batman versus Superman, the Whedon version, but it made zero sense. I just liked how Batman was like Lois, and then that was it.
Yeah,
no, it was great. And oh my God, come on, that whole scene culminating in Cyborg's dad's death.
That was so rough, man.
That was a scene that really got me. I was crying in that one. That and then to think that I don't know, it just tugs at my heart. Father-son shit tugs at my heartstrings a lot. And I just thought that was so great. Just a great cinematic moment to leave those feelings unresolved. Something about unresolved feelings, particularly between father and son, really hit it gets me. It chokes me up. It I don't know, killed me. I loved it. It was heartbreaking in the best of ways.
And if it wasn't for Cyborg's dad, they wouldn't have found where the
exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't even a pointless death either. There was weight to it, and it pushed the story forward while remaining very somber and upsetting. Great. But I loved it. Yeah.
But I love the way that it cemented that you can't do it alone. Even Silas Stone was a part of it. Like
absolutely,
everyone needed to work together. Otherwise, it was just whatever. But that's how Darkseid and Steppenwolf worked. Darkseid was the head of everything, and he controlled everyone. They controlled the parademons. There was like a clear top. With the Justice League, it's almost like a circle. Like with Darkseid, it's like a triangle. There's a top and then there's a bottom.
Hierarchy. But there's
a hierarchy. With Justice League, everyone works together.
There's a strong equality. Because I love, there's certain, what I love about this too is there's an understanding that each person has their place in the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Like everybody has the thing that they can do better than anybody else. Right? Like Batman can't hack into the mother boxes like Cyborg can. Cyborg can't turn back time like Flash can. Batman needs Wonder Woman to get the parademons off the ship. Like Wonder Woman has this warrior aspect to her that nobody else has. And I love the way, particularly in the final battle, that thematically, but visually and story-wise too, they all work together as a team. And there's a real team building aspect to that I loved. The way Wonder Woman stops the parademons and Cyborg throws Aquaman into the parademon and he knocks him down, and there's just a great badass moment where he like rides it and he shakes it off, and it's just the coolest fucking thing ever. But that's all teamwork and it's team building, and it's just beautiful. I love it. Team building shit. Awesome. Love it.
Speaking of teamwork, that almost Avengers Assemble moment we get in the final battle where they're all charging. That whole team shot was like crazy. I want that poster on my wall.
But that's another moment where I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, what does the 4:3 aspect ratio do for you?" It just seems a little pretentious, but I love it. If you watch again Kurosawa films or even comic books, open up a comic book. There's a thing called a splash page, which is when they use both pages of the comic book to create one single image.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most magnificent, things of the medium of comic books is the splash page. It's beautiful. And that felt like a splash page moment. The whole movie slowed down. Aquaman was flying with on the Batmobile, and Flash was running forward, and Wonder Woman and Superman. I mean, Superman wasn't there yet. Batman, Cyborg, and it stopped in this glorious moment, and it felt like a splash page, and it felt like how I feel reading comic books. It was great.
What I love about what they did with Superman was that they let the Justice League do everything without Superman, work together as a team, and then the moment that Superman didn't feel like an ex machina. It actually felt like felt genuine, because it almost felt like, okay, the team deserves to have Superman's help now because they're really working together. And by the time Superman helps them out, he's actually helping them.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that Bruce Wayne organizes this group before even new parademons existed, wanting to basically as a tribute to Superman this whole time. So it goes full circle. This was all for Superman, and Superman's helping out the group that's for him.
And that goes, even further into the idea of teamwork, right? Like, they were all working as a team at their capacity, and they still weren't enough. They needed that missing puzzle piece of Superman to be able to pull the whole thing together. And I know Jesus is going to have some words on this. Batman in this final fight, amazing. There's one shot that I was like, this is the most Batman thing I've ever seen in a movie. Parademons, you fucking up his car, and it gets destroyed, and he tumbles out, and he ejects into the air. And that's pretty Batman in and of itself. But the most Batman thing is that not only did he eject out of the car, he weaponized the car, right? Like, it cuts the shot, and the Batmobile like wipes out like 15 parademons, knocks him out, and he flies, and then he lands on the plane, and he not the plane, but the plane on the building, not like a flying aerospace plane. You guys get the feeling. You've seen the movie. And he like knocks out a bunch of them, throws a grenade. I just love that. I love seeing Batman in that whole fight. It was just great.
That scene where he's like from the chair, and you see like the whole like outline of his cape, just like and seeing him in this movie, like earlier, like just seeing him go head on with the parademons is just crazy. I think it was the scene where they were in the earlier in the film, and they were in the warehouse trying to rescue the hostages.
Yeah.
You see him like going full hand-to-hand combat with a whole parademon, and you forget he truly is just a man amongst gods.
Yeah. There was something years ago, there was a meme going around, and it was like, and it was supposed to like be putting down DC movies, but I think it's what makes DC movies so great. And the meme was like the Justice League, the DC movies Marvel movies is men trying to be gods, and the DC movies are gods trying to be men. And that, it includes Batman too, that. And I love these movies because they feel epic. It feels like I'm reading a Greek myth or I'm reading a biblical story. It feels ancient. Like, these stories feel like stories that are going to resonate 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And comic books, that's what they are. Comic book superheroes are essentially a continuation of the Greek hero myth. And historically, if you look in the whole human history, that's what they are today. That's what they are. And again, I don't want to knock Marvel. I love Marvel. I love everything they do. If you saw Falcon the Winter Soldier this week, amazing, great stuff they're doing. But I think what Zack Snyder's movies do is there is this almost biblical weight put on all of on not only the movie but the character's shoulders, and that's something I love. It feels almost poetic in a way. A lot of these movies, and that's what I love about these movies that they do uniquely in the superhero genre of film. Yeah.
Even Batman versus Superman tried. You could tell Zack Snyder wanted to tell that God-like story to it. It was just, it kind of fell flat just the way how of a mess it was. But Warner Brothers didn't even give him another chance with Justice League to tell that.
Yeah.
Again, and he actually executed that.
He executed it perfectly. To me, and I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. I know people have tons of mixed feelings on him, but I think this is by far his best movie.
Yes.
Maybe even a masterpiece. You know, I think it'll be a couple years when we have some hindsight that we can, you know, talk about it as a true masterpiece. But I think this will be remembered as a masterpiece because it's just so brilliant. And the way the whole arc of the story works, it's just utterly perfect. I'm in awe of this movie. I want to go see it in an IMAX theater now, you know, and just live in it and be enveloped in it.
I
Maybe
didn't have any high expectations for this cut. I thought it was going to be how people were very hyped about the Donner version of Superman 2.
Yeah.
It's just like a different cut of a movie. This was a different movie. This was an entirely different movie told by somebody that actually was able to have the creative control now.
Yeah.
And this really is Zack's story. If you, in retrospect, if you look at all three films, like his trilogy, Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, if you notice, BVS, when it starts from the end of Man of Steel, and you see like Bruce's perspective of the Black Zero event, the Metropolis battle,
which is
and then Justice League, when Justice League starts, it starts from the end of BVS. It's each movie ties into each movie.
Yeah, it flows perfectly. I would love to see. I mean, you'd probably have to just sit down and play them back to back. Take a whole day out, watch all three of them back to back. I'm sure it would be a magnificent thing to behold.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, guys. Maybe when we're all vaccinated, I'll rent out a movie theater or something.
Let's do it, man.
We'll rent out a theater for a day and watch all three of them back to back.
Dude, I love, we were talking mainly about Justice League, and we're gonna continue mainly talking about Justice League. I love all three of them so much. And I know that's not always the most popular opinion, but specifically the Ultimate Cut, I love Batman versus Superman so much. And I don't know if it's a perfect movie. I don't know. I'm not the one to judge it, but
it definitely got poo-pooed on.
It's just awesome seeing that Batman, because this is my favorite Batman. Probably ever. And it's just great. So far.
Link Robert Pattinson.
Listen, I'm really excited for that movie too. I'm leaving. There's a space right here in my heart that's wide open for Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, they just wrapped filming the other day, actually.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for it.
Okay, now, so earlier I said the Flash when he saved Iris was my third favorite scene in the whole movie. Second favorite scene in the whole movie. Flash going back in time. Now, let's set the stage, man. The Justice League, they're all fighting. They're beating up Steppenwolf. Superman lasers his fucking head off, like a chunk of the horn. Badass. You're like, wow, they're going to win. And then they lose. Whole place blows up. Batman's like, oh, fuck, shit, whatever. I forgot what he said. And he's like, oh, it blows up.
I think he said exactly, oh, fuck shit.
And the whole place blows up. And Barry, like, vibrates and stops. And, and then he's in the Speed Force. And they don't need to explain it, right? They don't need to stop and be like, oh, this is the Speed Force. It's amazing. No, it's just, this is the fucking Speed Force. You're either with it or you're not. Just follow us along this journey. And he starts running. And the way the ground is tread up. And now he goes to this beautiful thing where he goes like, Dad, like, I'm the best of the best, like you were right. Like, I want you to know this. And again, like I said, father-son shit really, chokes me up. And I think that is essentially, this movie boils down to relationships between father and child. If you look at every single character, their arc is based on father-child. Lex Luthor in BVS had clearly a rough relationship with his father. Superman has a complicated relationship with his father, with both his biological father and his adopted father. He has a very complicated relationship, and the first Man of Steel beautifully explores that. And then Wonder Woman has an interesting relationship with her father. Her father's a Greek god who she never met, kind of created her out of mud. And so they hint at it a little bit throughout all these movies, but she has a bit of a tricky relationship with her father. Batman, obviously, weird relationship because his father died when he was young and it set him off on this path. But I also think he has a deep fatherly relationship with Alfred, who's his adoptive father.
And
Flash. And Robin, you're right. Even Batman is a father to a son, an adopted son, which comes up later.
Yeah.
Flash, his whole thing is he's trying to do this to not only make his dad proud, but to also get him out of prison. Cyborg, he had a beautiful arc with his father son, and Steppenwolf, the villain, right? Now in the story he's his uncle, but he's definitely a paternal figure to Steppenwolf. Darkseid, his whole thing is he's trying to make amends for whatever it is he did to piss off his father. And I think this whole movie has a beautiful relationship exploration among father and child that I love. You know, I love that they were able to carry that all throughout these 3 movies, and 4 movies if you count Wonder Woman 2. And
Wait, Wonder Woman 2 or Wonder Woman as well?
Wonder Woman 1. Wonder Woman as well. And you know, I thought it added more depth to seeing this Batman's father dying. You know, I think that scene's got very mixed reaction, but particularly after seeing Justice League, I love having seen his father and having seen that moment, even though we know what it looks like. And then leading into the great line that sums up Cyborg's journey, which is when he goes inside the mother box and his father and his mother and himself, they're all trying to lure him into being, oh, we'll make you better and you won't be broken anymore. You won't be alone. You'll be with us. And he says that great line. He's like, I'm not broken and I'm not alone.
That tore at my heartstrings.
Yeah, that was
Oh my God. Me
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
That shot, when he's in that landscape, where he's in his human form, and then it goes over his mom, and then his other self, and then it transitions into Cyborg. That's such a cool shot. I don't know if you guys picked up on that one.
It's beautiful.
It's so great.
And again, you know, for a character who's physically disabled, and I know Ray Fisher worked with a lot of people who were physically disabled to add a level of you know, psychological realism to his character. And what a great message. You know, talk about how superheroes can affect children. What a great message for any kids who are disabled watching this. You're not broken and you're not alone. You know, that's a message we can all learn from, but particularly kids who are disabled. I've never seen that kind of message really hammered home. It just so loaded and tugged into my heartstrings. I loved it, man. I loved it. I love everything about this movie.
4 hours was 100% necessary.
100% well utilized. It was perfect. And then the single most badass thing I've ever seen in a superhero movie, and that's saying something, in a 4-hour movie of some of the most badass stuff I've ever seen, is when Aquaman stabs Steppenwolf, launches him, Superman punches him, and Wonder Woman lops his head off, and Darkseid stops it with his foot. Are you kidding me?
And just looks at it like, okay.
And just like squashes it.
As a comic book fan, if you had told me even 3 years ago, I would see Wonder Woman cutting off Steppenwolf's head and have it land through a boom tube at Darkseid's feet, mind-blowing. I mean, that's just a beautiful sight. I mean, it's badass in its own merit, but as a real DC Comics fan.
And him just stepping on the head was like, okay, you won this battle, but your other plans.
And then, again, talk about, you know, I love being able to tell story without dialogue. That wordless stare down that the League gives Darkseid and he gives right back, where they're just like, they're each like, I'm coming for you, and you know it, you know, there's something there, and it's just awesome. I love it.
Better than at the end of Avengers. It's like remember how we thought like the Thanos turning his head around was really cool?
Yeah.
That tops it, and that's why I wish we have to get another Justice League movie.
I'm gonna be pushing for it, man. Let's restore the Snyderverse, man. I hope it happens. I really do. And then the epilogue. Whew, so much to unpack here. One funny line, EJ and I were talking about it. I loved it when Ryan Choi, head of nanotech development, I was like, fuck yeah, man, head of nanotech development. I want to see more of that. Yeah, let's do it. And then the great scene, which this is now the third time I have said I'm not going to say any good things about Whedon's version, but now I'm going to go back and say a third good thing about Whedon's movie. I loved his little post-credit scene between Deathstroke and Lex Luthor. Thank you. And Lex Luthor, which was great. I love the Legion of Doom. The way that was all awesome. Very cool. Big Legion of Doom fan. However, it was way cooler when he just goes, I've got something for you, and it's Batman's real name, Bruce Wayne. Oh my God. And then he picks up the glass of champagne. He's like, "Yep, all right, we have something to celebrate." So cool, man.
Especially so cool. As Deathstroke, I'm like the biggest fan in the world of Deathstroke. It was true. Just so bad. I know Josh can say
he has a signed copy of Deathstroke's #1, signed by Marv Wolfman.
Oh my God, it's so cool. Oh. Totally rabbit hole down another thing. I somehow found an actual original print of Deathstroke the Terminator #1, his very first appearance, or his first solo run. And I just happened to go to a Comic-Con, and I realized that Marv Wolfman was also there. So I was like, I just ran up to him really quick, and I was like, "Can you sign this for me?" And it was the greatest experience of my life. Yeah. Anyway, back to the actual movie. I could talk about that day for the rest of my life. It was just so cool to see Deathstroke, and especially Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. That's a brilliant casting.
Absolutely. And I loved Lex Luthor in that scene. I know it's again another controversial casting that people have strong feelings about. I love seeing Lex Luthor as almost like somewhere between Jeff Bezos and who's the other guy? Who's the other guy? Zuckerberg.
I was gonna say the Facebook guy.
The Facebook guy, Zuckerberg. I love the interpretation of him as that way, as like, Lex Luthor started as a wealthy oil tycoon, but those guys are dwindling. Their numbers are, and the real billionaires are the Jeff Bezoses of the world. And I think that's a great sort of way of updating the character. And just the way he performed in that little scene was so good. He's like, I hope you actually have what I'm wanting. And Lex Luthor goes, "And incur your wrath, Mr. Wilson? I've got too much to live for." And it's just like, just the banter between the two of them was great.
Yeah.
It really makes me want to see more of it. Now, so if Flash saving Irish was my third favorite scene, Flash going back in time was my second favorite scene. My absolute favorite scene of this movie, Nightmare Sequence.
Oh my God, same. Best scene in the movie, if you asked me. Oh my God.
How cool was that? I mean, again, I could see a whole movie of just that.
Yeah.
And I don't even think that was supposed to be I think that was filmed. That was like the scene that was filmed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That was additional photography.
Yeah. Zach did before the movie came out, Zach did an interview with IGN, and he said in that interview, he said the movie's going to end on a big cliffhanger. So when I was watching this film the first time through, when Flash was time traveling, I was thinking, "Oh, this is it. He's gonna time travel, mess it up, and it's gonna end up nightmare reality, and that's how the movie ends." I was expecting that, but what we got was also great too.
And yeah, I mean, I'm a big, post-apocalyptic fan. I love all the Mad Max movies. I love what was the great one, Book of Eli. If you've never seen that, that's a criminally underrated film. Go watch that. Just a great film. I Am Legend, another underrated classic.
Terminator 2.
Terminator 2. Some of the stuff in that movie. Terminator Salvation. Talk about another underrated piece of post-apocalyptic movie. So I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic, particularly really sci-fi heavy post-apocalypse. And I thought the designs for everybody were perfect. Mira having the jugs of water, how cool was that? I wouldn't think of something like that, and you go, "Oh wow, that's really cool." Like, she needs that to live.
Yeah.
So she carries these big water tanks around. Batman's design didn't change from BVS, but still just as cool to see Batman in a fucking trench coat in a wasteland. It's just beautiful.
With Mad
Deathstroke
Max goggles.
with Mad
Mad
Max
Max
goggles,
goggles.
man. I love it.
Those are
Uh,
actually the same goggles that he wears when he's looking for Aquaman in the snow blizzard.
Really?
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. I'm gonna have to go back
Huh.
and look out for
I
that.
had no idea.
And there's a character I'm beating around the bush here with.
Yeah, I know. Which
I
I'm gonna
love,
shut you up about, and I'm gonna talk about instead.
I love Deathstroke. Like, and you know, there was an exhibit that had all the costumes on display. He has kryptonite bullets all along his arm, which is like awesome.
So
Flash looked so cool. Cyborg looked amazing. But the main man, Jake, you seem like you want to talk about him.
I really do. I really do want to talk about him. So, I'm gonna go back a couple months or weeks. Dude, I have no idea what time it is anymore. It was either weeks, months, or yesterday. When they first revealed that Jared Leto was gonna be in this movie, I was through the roof excited because, again, I know it's a super unpopular opinion. I love Jared Leto's take of the Joker in Suicide Squad. The only thing I ever wanted was just more of him, and I also wanted to see him with Batman. And so when I saw that last trailer, and they revealed not only what Joker looked like, but that he was going to be interacting with Batman, I was through the roof excited. So I remember sitting, we're watching the movie, and I had no idea where the hell the nightmare sequence was going to fit into the movie.
Yeah.
I love where it did fit, but when Batman is talking to Mira about they have to just like move on, not talk about their emotions, and Mira's like who have you lost? Who have you ever loved? And you just hear Joker's like smug ass laughing, and you hear him laughing, and he tells that story about Robin, and it's so cruel almost to hear Joker taunt him about losing his mom, losing his dad, and then losing Robin. Oh my god, it was, and Batman's like you better be fucking careful about what you say.
Yeah. One of my
And
favorite
then,
lines.
and Joe.
No,
say it.
One of
'cause I
my
was
favorite
just
lines
about
is
to say
when they're talking back and forth, and he's like, and Harley Quinn told me right before she died, when you kill him, and make no mistake, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, oh my god, when he
it
just
was
said that,
so
it's
cool here to say Batman say that.
so bad, so badass, so badass.
And then he takes their treaty card that Joker had
The
made.
treaty card too.
Then he just yoinks it from his hand, and Joker's like, "Ooh, he almost had me there."
Yeah. And I'm a big sucker. Talk about the way it was photographed. Big sucker for handheld shots, particularly in wasteland areas.
Yeah.
It just looks cool.
Right.
The whole scene was like handheld, and it just so beautifully shot. I mean, it was just beautiful.
My favorite, I guess, single shot that I remember right away noticing, loving, was when Joker's holding the card and he's explaining its meaning, like, this is our treaty, whatever. And it was like, if you ever want to like go against this, just rip in half and we'll talk about, and it's focusing on the card the whole time. And the focus just racks right to Joker's face. He was like, we'll focus on why you sent a boy wonder to do a man's job. There was just so much impact on that line. Oh my God, it was so good. I loved his look. He almost looked like just a clown version of like Marilyn Manson. I loved his long hair.
Yeah.
I loved how just stripped down. Don't get me wrong, I loved the tattoos. I really do. I really dug that look. But I love just how stripped down he looked. It was just, I don't know if it was a lipstick or a blood. It almost looked like blood around his lips. But he felt deranged while still keeping that sort of ego that the Joker has to like let you know I'm the Joker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he couldn't leave that look behind, which I just loved.
It's almost like the Joker was at his weakest point too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Or even if you like listen to his laugh just sounds like he's dehydrated, like he's physically it physically pains him to do that laugh, but he's gonna do it anyway. It was
look, again, Jared Leto is a guy who many people have many different opinions on him. He plays deranged like nobody else does. If you saw The Little Things, he was the highlight of that film. I've everything I've seen him in, I've loved him. I think we get to see more of him as Joker because his take is very interesting and not like any other.
Absolutely.
think he got different direction because, like, I liked his. I was surprised at how much I liked his performance for like 5 minutes, more than his part in Suicide Squad as a whole. Because there is definitely a change in direction of the way that he portrayed the role, but it was like very subtle. It was less flashy and more just deranged.
All right. Yeah.
It was
For
less
sure.
deranged than Suicide Squad.
Yeah. All right. So let's do some closing thoughts everybody has. Jake.
I feel like we're all gonna have a very similar closing thoughts.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, as someone who not only just loves movies, I love comic books, all these things, and I grew up watching Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, those awesome shows. I'm playing every Justice League video game, any DC content I can get my hands on. It was so wonderful to see not only this great comic book movie, but this movie that Zack Snyder was so passionate about, and he finally was able to, whether you loved it or hated it or whatever, the amount I admire of him just getting his full vision out there. Even if I didn't like the movie, and I absolutely did, I love how much everyone supported Zack Snyder, all of the actors, his wife, who was also the producer of the movie. I just loved that this movie now exists, because it was pretty cool to have the other Justice League, but I'm so glad that this full version of the movie exists, and it's on HBO Max. I can watch it anytime I want. It's broken up into chapters. If I don't have the time to watch 4 hours of it, I can watch a quick little chapter of it. It's just wonderful for me. So that's my. And if I never got another one, would I be sad? Yes, but I am fully satisfied with what I got.
Very nice. EJ, closing thoughts.
Yeah, similar. I grew up with DC. I first comic was the Death of Superman my dad gave me, and I remember watching the old Batman show with Adam West, and like recordings of the old Wonder Woman show and stuff, and just seeing this come to fruition, it's just it's something you never imagine, and
Yeah.
like it's like your childhood brought to life, and it just I'm ecstatic. And like Jake said, if something doesn't happen after this, I'm satisfied as well. But I do hope that some shape or form we see something else, because this was, I mean, projects like this, it's good to see like the support and the effort put in it. It's different,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Jesus.
I'm just, again, I'm so happy that we even got this. And, let's hope that studios, like, this is going to change things and maybe hopefully deter studio meddlement and, like, try to get, like, back to the old days, auteur filmmaking. And, like, as a filmmaker, this just gives me hope that this may not be a problem and for much longer, hopefully.
Yeah, I like that. Peter.
I think when they released it on HBO Max, it gave us like a different way of watching a movie. If it's 4 hours long, it gave people the chance to actually sit down and watch it, pause it, actually appreciate it. And the fact that we got something that exceeded so much expectations, and also that was very delicately put together, and actually getting us pumped for something in the future. It actually, for the first time, I watched a DC movie actually looking forward to what's going to happen next. And hopefully we get, and that's what Jake said, I won't be upset if we don't get a sequel, but if we do, I'd love it to be in theaters, but also in streaming too, kind of like a book. You buy a book and you read all the different chapters. This is like actually watching a comic book come to life.
Absolutely. And to me, I think the biggest takeaway is that I love as much. I would have loved to have seen this 4 years ago, but poetically, I think there's something to the fact that the whole movie was steeped in justice, right?
Yes.
For the Justice League, you had, starting with this movie being having tried to be made for like decades. George Miller tried to make it, who did Mad Max 10, 12 years ago, and that fell apart. So now you're bringing justice to the idea of a Justice League movie for the fans. You're bringing justice to Zack Snyder, whose vision deserves to be seen. Again, even if the movie was good or not, his vision deserves to be seen. There's justice in that. There's justice in this movie that like Zack Snyder's a real family man, and when he lost his daughter, for them to not only kick him off the project, kick him man while he's down, but also destroy his movie. There's justice in seeing his vision put out there on the big screen. There's justice for Ray Fisher, who is one of the most incredibly talented actors I've seen in the last 5 years. If you're looking for more of Ray Fisher, go watch True Detective season 3. He does some amazing stuff in that. EJ, I saw it. We got to talk about that another time. So there's justice for Ray Fisher, who is being really put on the highest pedestal and the emotional center of a superhero movie, especially of this caliber. There's very few acting pedestals that big, so to put him back up there, justice for Ray, justice for the fans that love Zack Snyder, that love his vision. The fact that they were able to not only turn this movie into something where we could see the movie, but everybody involved in the movement became like superheroes themselves. They raised money for suicide prevention, and numerous other charities that I don't have off the top of my head, but particularly suicide prevention. I think that's a very serious, close to home sort of topic, and I'm glad that everybody involved was able to do that. And now I'm seeing on Twitter there's a whole campaign that was started by a guy that I know. Walter Johnson set up this. He's been one of the early guys I know who's been clamoring. I'll tag him down below, clamoring to get the Snyder Cut released. Now started a snowball rolling for the actress who played the woman that Cyborg helped out by giving her money, getting her more attention because she was great in this too. And so it's great to see just justice all around with the release of this movie. And for a movie called The Justice League, it just feels very poetically fitting. And so that is that's my takeaway with this project. And I love it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it a third, fourth, fifth time. I think every time I watch this, I'm gonna have to sit and watch the whole 4-hour thing. I don't think I'm gonna be able to break it up. It's just so riveting. All right, before we go, a little bit of something later. I want everybody to go down the line. So Jake, EJ, Jesus, Peter, I'll start us off. What is your favorite character in the movie and your favorite scene? I'm going to say my favorite character, first time was Cyborg, second time watching was Flash. And then my favorite scene is the nightmare sequence. Jake.
So similar to you, I had one that started off as my favorite, and then second time watching it. So first time watching it, it was absolutely Cyborg. I love Cyborg. Second time watching it, and I'm not putting down Cyborg in any way. Second time watching it, my favorite was Wonder Woman. I really loved Wonder Woman. And I felt like I should have talked about her more. But
no, she's
and then my favorite scene was the nightmare scene. I love Joker. I love seeing the nightmare looks of Mara and Deathstroke, all those characters. It was great to me.
Yeah. All right, EJ.
All right, so Cyborg, I mean, he definitely gave humanity to the film in this version, and yeah, my favorite scene, well, the nightmare is obvious that, but I guess second would be the moment where, Cyborg seeing his father's about to sacrifice himself and like just that pain that he feels in it. That's definitely
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah. That's a great scene. Jesus.
Yeah, my favorite character in this movie was also Cyborg. He's getting all the love today. And my favorite sequence was when he was in the electronic landscape and like learning his powers.
Yeah.
Like we saw it all visualized on screen. We saw the Wall Street Bull and the Wall Street Bear fight, and that was pretty cool.
That was great. Peter.
I'm gonna have to say this one's really hard, but I'm gonna have to say Superman in this one. They really did a good job with Superman in this one when it came to resurrecting him and everything, and being there like at the ending sequence. My favorite part of the movie is the whole sequence with Darkseid and like that whole flashback montage, like that whole what you call the history lesson of the mother boxes. That was my favorite part of the movie.
Great scene. All right. Thank you everybody for listening, and then thank every one of you, Jake, EJ, Jesus, Peter. If you guys are all down, I'd love to figure out a way of continuing these kind of discussions, because I love this. So we'll figure out what that'll look like. But thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all on the next one.